In this video, I'm going to take you on a full tour of how to use Beadographer. This video will follow the Beadographer guide, which you can find at beadographer.com/guide. So feel free to have that guide open as you watch this video. Let's get started. So what's Beadographer? Beadographer is an app that lives in your web browser, and it lets you design patterns for beading projects. You can create designs using seed beads, cylinder beads like Delica beads, for example, or plastic fuse beads such as art cow, perler, or hammer beads. You can make lots of things, including bracelets, ornaments, tapestries, and loom designs. Beadographer is currently only available for Windows, Mac, and the iPad. Some people have used it on other devices, but it's not really supported for those. So if you try to use it on the other devices, you might encounter some errors. Beadographer has a free version and a membership version. They're basically the same as each other, but the membership version lets you do a few extra things. You can save your work and come back to it later. You can export PDFs with diagrams and word charts, and you can manage some of your bead collections. You can find out all the information about the different versions by going to beadographer.com/about and reading more about it. So one way to learn Beadographer is to also join the Facebook group. We have a Facebook group called Beadographer Common Room, which has people from around the world, and you can ask some questions there, and people are really friendly and helpful, and they can help you out with how to learn the app. If you are learning Beadographer, if you're using Beadographer rather, and you find that there's something wrong with it or there's some errors, you could also get in touch with us through the contact form on our website. So now that I've talked about that, let's just go ahead and start a new project. So at the moment, when we launch the app, we see my projects, and currently I don't have any projects. So let's just start a new one. And when we see this new project dialog, we get a chance to enter some information. So I'm going to create, let's create a bracelet. So I'm going to say bracelet. You can give it a description, and I don't know, I'll call it gold and black. And then you could decide what kind of beads to use here. And I'm going to just stick with Miyuki Delica beads, size 11. Then we can choose a pattern, and this will allow us to change the arrangement of the beads on the canvas. So I'm going to stay with loom at the moment because it'll be a loom bracelet made on a loom, beading loom. And then finally, we have a chance to add a collection. We'll talk about this later, but this is like you can organize your beads into different collections. For now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the default palette. And then we choose a number of rows and columns. So I'm going to say maybe this bracelet has maybe 10 columns and 120 rows, say. The project, the app will guess the size of your bracelet here, and it's saying it's going to be about 1/2 inch by 8 inches, or this number of centimeters. And the app does an okay job of that, but sometimes it's a little bit off. So you should know how large your beading projects end up being as well, and you can use the app as a guideline to help you. So let's see. If you put in a very large number here, let's say 700 and 700, the app will present a warning saying that the app will run slowly, especially if you are on an iPad or something with not much memory. So best is to just keep it fairly small to start with, and you can find out how many rows and columns your app can handle. Your device can handle, rather. You can also add a custom size, and this will change the size of the bead that you're going to use. So right now, the Delica beads are this number of millimeters in diameter and width. but you could change that. Imagine you had some custom beads that you found that are actually a different size or shape. You can put those in here if you want to. So let's launch and see what it looks like. Okay, so here's our bracelet, and notice for the loom we actually have the rows and columns are the other way around. So this is one row here, and these are the columns going this way. But if you find that confusing, we can always rotate the canvas around, and we can have it this way as well if you would rather work that way. We'll get to those tools in a second, but let's just take our look around the app. We can look at the different areas of the screen. So this area where I just added some beads, that is the canvas, and that takes up most of the page. Along the top we have various tools. These are all the tools you could use in the app. And down the sides we have all of our different beads that we can use to add to the canvas. And sometimes if you make your window quite small, you'll see that we can't see all of these tools here. So we have this button here saying more tools. We click on that and then the tools will appear down the right hand side of our page like that. But I'll just put that back. There we go. So these styles here, sometimes I call them styles or sometimes I call them swatches. Anyway, these beads down the left hand side, also some of them might be hidden. There might be more than we can see, in which case we can just scroll down using this scroll bar here. All right, so let's just get started with some of these tools up here. The first one is this one here, which is the draw tool, and you can select it by just clicking on it, or you can press the D key on your keyboard. That is your just main tool for adding beads to the canvas. You can really just click on a swatch and then just click and drag and beads will appear on the canvas. When you hold down the Shift key in draw mode, it changes to the eraser tool. And so the erase tool obviously just erases beads from the canvas. You can hold down Shift, or you can just click on it and then it will erase beads as well. You can also press E for the erase tool. Let's look at another useful tool for adding beads on the canvas, and that's this paint tool, paint bucket. Click on that, and if you choose a swatch, then it will fill all the area with that color. And then it works pretty much like the paint bucket in any classic painting program you might have used. It's pretty similar. So if you have, for example, a circle and you use the paint tool, it will just paint the middle there. All right, so let's move on. We've also got the rectangle tool, and that is one where you draw a rectangle and beads will appear inside the rectangle like that. That's pretty useful for adding lots of beads. And the paint tool has the P shortcut and the rectangle has the R shortcut. So you can get between these different modes really fast. Now we also have a history, so we can undo things that we did before by clicking undo, and you can also click Alt plus Z, and we can go back through time and undo everything that we ever did. You can also redo things, so we can redo or undo depending on what we want to do. Okay, so let's take a look at the next useful tool, and that will be the screenshot tool. This one here, it's like a little camera. When you click it, it will enter the file name that you want to save on your desktop, and then you click save, and then now I've got that saved on my desktop. All right, so let's move on. Another useful tool is this cloud button, and that's just the save button. It saves your file. So I suppose I better do something to save first to make it meaningful. Imagine this is the project. I'm now going to click that cloud button and it says project saved to cloud, so we can see the project has been saved. Okay, so there are some basic tools that we have for creating our project in Beadographer. And now we've learned how to add beads to the canvas. I'm going to go on and talk about how to change the view, how to kind of manipulate what we see. So the first tool to talk about is the hand tool. You can select it by clicking on it, or you can also press the H key on your keyboard. When you select the hand tool, you'll see we get a bunch of extra options down here, which we'll talk about. But what does the hand tool do? Well, the hand tool just lets you drag your canvas around. So if we want to see what's going on over here, we can do that. And let's take a look at all these extra options here. So the first one is shows you some guides. We can change the guides later on, but they are set as 5x5 guides, so that will help us count beads really well, rather than having to go very slowly and onerously and count all of these different beads. We can just use the guides and count quickly, like 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, that's 20 beads. So it's very quick for me to say, all right, I know I want to add a rectangle of 20 beads there, and then I'm going to add a rectangle of 20 beads here. That was really fast. And that's a way that the guides are handy. So we can turn those on and off. The next one, this ABC, shows and hides symbols of the beads. So what are the symbols? Well, they are, you can assign a symbol to every bead which is used later on in the word chart. And it's also used to help distinguish different beads when they are close together in color and you're trying to create your project. So let's add a symbol for these yellow and blue beads. I'm going to shift click and edit the swatch. So I'm going to give this a B for blue, and I'll give this one a Y for yellow. Okay, these swatches now both have a symbol associated with them. So when I click this, show symbols, we can see Y and B. But if we didn't yet have a symbol associated with a bead, nothing will happen there when we show and hide the symbols. So you have to actually assign a symbol to this bead in order for it to appear when we are showing the symbols. Okay, so the next one is this show and hide inactive beads. Let's see what that does. See over here, there's some beads on the canvas which are empty. They don't yet have a bead on them. They're just an empty space. So if we want to hide that, we can hide them or show them that way. The next one shows and hides the rendering of the bead. So let's see what happens when we do that. When we click that, they are now visible as these just simple squares, and they don't have this kind of finish look on them. And then the final tool moves the current view of the canvas back to the origin. What that means is wherever we are, wherever we're zoomed in, wherever we're zoomed to, if you just click this, it goes right back to the beginning. That could be handy if you zoom everything off the canvas and we don't know where our project is anymore. We just click that and back it comes. These options can also have keyboard shortcuts associated with them. So this guide has the G button. This symbol has the, I think it's U. No, it's Q. There we go. It's Q does that one. U does the next one, I think. And I think that's all of them. Oh, there's also X. X does the show and hide rendering. So those are some useful keyboard shortcuts. We don't even have to have the hand tool open. We could have the draw tool open, and I can, if I'm wondering what the symbols are, I can just press Q, and now I see the symbols. I don't even need to be in the hand mode to do that. All right, so now we've taken a look at the hand mode. Let's take a look at the next one, which is this rotation tool. And you can see that the rotation tool just really rotates the view, and you can click anywhere on the canvas and drag, and then you can work in any direction. If you click on this little button, it just pops back to square again, which is the way it opens. And finally, in order to change the view, we have this zooming in and zooming out, and that seems fairly obvious what it does. You can also, in some devices, pinch to zoom in and out. If you have a trackpad or if you're using an iPad, you can do that. Let's see. What else to say about zooming in or zooming out? I think you can only zoom so far, and then the app won't let you zoom any further, but you can go quite a long way before it decides it doesn't want to let you zoom any further. And similarly with zooming in. I forgot. Yeah, you can also just press and hold down the plus and minus keys. Will let you do that without having to click many times. All right, so that was changing the view. The next part of the tutorial is all about how to select beads. So beads can be selected and moved around or changed in some ways. So we can, just similar to Photoshop and some other similar drawing programs, you can select things and manipulate them in certain ways. So let's take a look. These three tools here, the marquee tool, the select tool, and the color select tool, these are our three ways in which we can select beads. With all of these tools, we have this extra panel down here, this select panel, which are different ways we can manipulate the beads available. So let's just see firstly what these tools do, and then we'll talk about the select panel. So the first tool is the marquee tool. I can just drag a box over beads, and when I do that, you can see the beads underneath that box become selected. They become highlighted, and they have a little black dot associated with them, which makes us know that they are currently selected. If I just click anywhere, then all the beads get unselected as well in this marquee mode. So that's how you can just, and I think if you also hold down Shift, you can select multiple marquees at the same time. So if I wanted to select this area and this area, but not the beads in between, that's how I would do that. The next tool is the select tool, and this is just a tool for clicking on individual beads. If I have a very specific selection I want to make, which is a random shape, I can do that by dragging over various beads. In this tool, if I shift click, it actually doesn't select multiple in the same way. It unselects or deselects. So I'm holding down Shift at the moment, and now I'm unselecting beads. So that could be useful. We can combine these two tools. Imagine I wanted all of these beads selected, but not some beads in the middle. I can select them all with the marquee tool, then swap over to the select tool, hold down Shift, and unselect something in the middle. I could also do that if I had some special shape I wanted to make. And finally is the color select tool, which we can select by clicking that button, and that selects all the beads of one style. So at the moment, if I click on blue, it selects all the blues. If I click on the orange, it selects all of the orange, and so on. These three tools also have keyboard shortcuts associated with them. M highlights the marquee tool, S the select tool, and W the color select tool. So let's see why we would want to select beads. One thing we can do when we select beads is we can move them around. So let's do that. We can firstly, I'm just going to get rid of what the beads we have actually this is something I can talk about first. I can talk about how we can erase all our beads really quickly. We can select them all, and then we can click this little eraser button here, which erases all selected beads. There we go, and they're gone. Now I want to show you how we can use the selected beads in order to drag things around. So let's suppose I have this design. Let's suppose I've got a little design here. I'll make a tree, and I decide, there we go, and I decide I like this tree, but I want it somewhere else. I can select it and just drag it around. So that's the first thing you could do with these selected beads. Imagine I wanted a tree on a dark blue background. Well, I'm going to just create that dark blue background, and now I can use the drag feature and just drag right on top. There we go. Notice that when I do that, if I then drag it off again, it takes the background with it. So once you drag a bead onto another bead, it overwrites the bead that it falls onto. So just watch out for that. So dragging is the first thing we can do. The second thing I think we should talk about is dragging, but making little clones or stamps of a various feature. This is useful for creating some patterns. By the way, I just used a keyboard shortcut there for deleting all the beads. I just pressed delete or backspace while I had the bead selected, and that is the same thing as clicking on that eraser button. It will delete whatever beads are selected. So let's just make a little pattern that we might want to clone, okay? I'm going to just make a zigzag pattern because it's quite fun. How about something like this? There we go. And I can then do maybe a little black one like that, and then an orange one like this. And you see I'm making this nice repeating zigzag pattern, like something like that. Okay, well that's good, but I want to work really fast, and so I'm going to use this clone feature to drag and clone this pattern and make it more extensive. So if I just drag around, it doesn't really repeat the pattern. I have to enter the clone mode in order to do that. This button here enters clone mode. So I'm going to click that. Now clone mode is enabled. And when I drag, you can see that it repeats things. So I'm going to just drag around like this. And you can see it is repeating the pattern for me. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to drag. And you can see this pattern is very quickly being repeated on the bracelet. And I can even just drag like this. Now it's repeating really fast. That was such a fast way to create a repeating pattern using clone mode. I think it was fun. Let's just do another one for fun, just so we get the idea. Let's say I want to, I don't know, let's go back to that tree idea. And we're going to have a tree like this. And have a little bark there. And let's make it symmetrical. There we go. And maybe I will add some other color in the tree. Okay, that's a nice tree. And I'm going to have, I would like that on some, let's just move that to the side for a bit. And I'm going to have some sky and some earth on the tree as well. So I would like the whole tree to be repeated down the entire length of the bracelet, really long bracelet here. I'm going to make some sky like that. And I'll make some earth. What color should we have the earth? Maybe, oh, I don't know. Let's have it dark, this sort of maroony color. Like that. Now I want the trees repeated along the entire length there. And again, I can just, I'm in, and make sure I'm in clone mode. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. And then I can, now I'm in clone mode. I can just repeat this tree again and again and again. And then now I've done that, I can work more quickly by taking a larger area of trees and cloning. And you can see it's really fast to make a repeating pattern along the entire length of your project. Let's just finish it up. Let's get it on top. There we go. Let's see how that's working out. Nice. And I just need to sort out the beginning. So I'm going to clone this backwards, something like this. And now the cloning pattern is done. So something else we should talk about in selecting is that we can change the colors of all of the beads at once in a really useful way. This color select tool, right now I don't like the colors I've chosen. I can't really see this tree very well. This kind of toothpaste color is the same, too similar to the sky. This brown color is too similar to the earth. So I'm going to play with some different colors here and improve my forest a little bit. So I'm going to use the color select tool. And then when you have any bead selected, if you then click on a swatch, it will change the color of all those beads. So you see now it's sort of we've got a dark sky, but if I don't like that, I can do the same again, select these dark blue, and I'm going to make it a very light sky now. See if I like that better. And I think I do, but I think I want to make this kind of toothpaste color very different. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to make that, I don't know, maybe this green. That's a little better. And then I'm going to change the earth and just make it really dark because I can't currently see the soil, the trunk at all. And there we go. I could play with that a lot longer. I still don't like it very much, but I hope I've demonstrated how you can change the color of your project after creating the project really easily by selecting all of the same color and then clicking a swatch to change it. You can change, you can do that, but in a more limited way, just by selecting a particular group of beads like this, and then again click on the swatch. Let's say we would like one of the trees to really stand out. We just selected the beads, then clicked on the swatch, and they changed that color. I'll do it again. I would say I want this trunk of the tree to be bright yellow. We can do that. So now we have a bracelet, but one tree is standing out for some reason. So, all right, I'm going to select all the beads with a keyboard shortcut now. I'm going to press the letter A, and they're all selected. And I'm going to delete it. And by pressing backspace, and now we're back to an empty project. And I'd like to demonstrate more we can do with the select tools. We have these 5 options here of transforming our selection. So first, let's just make a little pattern, and we can see how this works. So I'm going to make a pattern here. Let's have yellow, red, green, blue. There we go. All right, that's a nice pattern we've got. And I want to demonstrate what these tools do. So firstly, we have this rotate tool. It rotates it to the right. Can you see that every time I click that, the square rotates around? And if we do the same, we can click on the second tool, we will rotate it back again, rotate left. So this could be very handy for making repeating patterns. So yeah, let's just have a go with that, and we can see how that might be handy for making repeating patterns. I can, for example, we can have one like this, and then one like this, but we want a round one. And then we want to repeat but turn every time. Now we're making this interesting looking pattern. which we just created by dragging and rotating, dragging and rotating. It's not something I could have come up with myself, but with the rotate tool, it was easy to do. All right, so we can also rotate by 180 degrees, and let's have a go with that. So I'll just create a little, I don't know, create a little motif here with some black and white. And we'll see, let's see, maybe some, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just have this yellow and orange, let's say. I don't know. And we can see that if we rotate by 180 degrees, it then reflects. I chose a bad object because this is already symmetric by 180 degrees. So let's try something else. I don't know. Let's see. Let's make something which is not. How about that? We could have this one. Now when we move it by 180 degrees, it will change entirely. So you see that it was just rotated around. And we could also flip things, and we can flip things this way, all of which will help us make some interesting repeating patterns. And please play around with it and have fun. All right, so I think we've covered most of what we can do with the select tool, but I did want to talk about one more keyboard shortcut, which is the inverse button, which is only available really through a keyboard shortcut. Let's just go back to we had those trees a moment ago. Yeah. All right. Now I'm just thinking, what if I wanted to select everything except a tree? I wanted to keep the tree unselected but select everything else. What I could do is I could select a tree like this. And then I'm going to press the I button, and it will invert the selection. So now everything else except that tree is selected, and I could either move things around, or I could change the color, or whatever I wanted to do. That's a really useful way to select things. So I'll just do it again. I'm going to select this square, but I want the opposite of that square. I want everything except that square selected. I can now do that, and I can change its color or do whatever I want. And that's a quick way to select all but something, is to select it and then press the I key to invert the selection. So I'm going to delete everything, and we can move on to the next section. A look at the palette, which is this area on the left-hand side of the screen. If we click on a bead here, it will get selected. And we'll know that bead is selected because we'll see a square around it, and it will also be reflected down here to show us this active swatch down here. You can drag these swatches around the canvas to reorder them. So imagine if I wanted blue at the top, I could click on the blue and drag it up to the top. This dragging feature is not available on the iPad. Instead, on the iPad, you will see some arrows in this edit swatch dialog right here, and clicking on those arrows will move the swatch up and down. So let's take a look at how to edit and delete swatches. One thing we can do is we can hold down Shift and click on a swatch, and up comes this edit swatch window. You can see there's various information about this swatch that we can edit, and then when we're done we click Save. We'll talk more about all of these options in a minute. We can also delete the swatch by clicking Delete. So I'm just going to delete it now, and it's gone. But please note that if we have some beads of this certain color on the canvas that exist, when we open this Edit Swatch dialog, we no longer have the option to delete that swatch. We have to first remove all of the beads of that type from the canvas, and now we can delete it if we want to. So one way to open up the edit swatch dialog is holding down Shift and clicking on a swatch. And another way is to click this palette button up here, and that opens up the edit swatch dialog as well. Let's take a look at how to create a new swatch, and we're going to see all of those same details again as in the edit swatch dialog. At the bottom of the swatches, we'll see a button with a plus sign, and that is the button we use to create a new swatch. And here are the same options as in the edit swatch window, but we're just going to create a new swatch. So let's choose a swatch, and we're going to call it, let's say, gold. And we're going to give it a symbol of G, and we're going to give it a color which is sort of goldy. So let's take a look at these sliders. The top slider changes the hue of the bead, which is sort of where it is in the rainbow, and we need it in a kind of yellowy area for gold. The middle slider changes how vibrant or kind of bright, if you like, the color is. On one side it's close to gray, and on the other side it's sort of super bright and jumps out at you. And the final slider changes how light or dark the bead is, and we're going to sort of have it in the middle. And that's our nice gold color there. We also note that if we have a particular color in mind that we want to put for this swatch, we can click here and we'll see this little input that says enter hex code. So a hex code is 6 digits, 6 digits from 0 to 9 or A to F, and that represents a number, and that number represents a particular color. So for example, bright red is FF0000. That is just the hex code for fully bright red. And then something yellowy might be, I don't know, EEEE00. You don't have to know much about hex codes, but if you want to use them, that's how we're going to do that. We just click OK. So let's just get this gold how we'd like it to be, and we can move on. We'll talk about tints in a minute, but first let's talk about the finish and the transparency. The finish talks about the exterior of the bead, how glossy it is. We have 3 options here. One is opaque, and that is the default style for all the beads in Beadographer. The middle one is sort of fairly glossy or semi-gloss, and the last one is very, very shiny. And as we're making a gold bead, we want it to be really, really shiny. We could also change the transparency of the bead, and that's how see-through it is. We have 3 options here. One is just not see-through. One is transparent, and we didn't see much of a change here with this finish, but we could probably see more of a change in other options. If we change this color to blue, for example, we can now see kind of a difference. It's a little bit subtle, but you see there's this sort of streak in the middle that's showing us that this is a glass bead and we can see through it. And then the final option is this inner color option, which is for types of beads that are painted on the inside, sort of through the hole, but not on the outside. And then we can see that the outside is this just clear glass, and the inside has been painted. So that's what that's for. So for our gold bead, though, we're going to just go back to a shiny and opaque bead. And let's take a look at this tint option here. So tint is a way to add a second color to a bead. And this is useful in a few situations when the bead has a kind of sheen to it that's different from its regular color. We could use this tint. So let's just play with this and do a couple of examples. One could be for some very dark beads. If you see just this dark bead here, where the shine, without a tint, the shine is kind of pure white, but if we add a tint to it, it might shine a different color. So that could be useful for some kind of, beads that have this oily shine to it. I think there's sometimes called these AB or beads from Miyuki or Toho. they have this kind of shiny effect. And another example could be for metallic beads. If you want to create a gold bead, gold beads might not shine actually white because they're metallic. They'll shine in kind of a more yellowy color. So let's add a yellow tint to a yellow bead. We're going to make it a very bright tint, and we'll see that now it looks more metally. If we take it off, it looks more like glass. So we put it on, it looks more like metal. That's another time when we might use a tint. Okay, so we have this gold bead with a G symbol. We've got the color and the tint, finished transparency, so we are done. And here is our bead. It's appeared at the bottom, and we can just add it straight into the canvas. And we've got this gold, nice gold bead appearing. Let's talk a little bit about selecting beads. We know we can select them by clicking on them, but there's actually another way to select them, and that's by using this eyedropper tool here. So first, to demonstrate this, I'm just going to put a few more beads on the canvas, and we can see how it works. So so imagine that we're creating a design and we want to continue with this gold bead over here, but I can't remember where I put this gold bead on the palette, or I don't remember exactly which one this maps to because I've got a lot of yellows and they all look quite similar. So that's what the eyedropper tool is for. I'll just click on this gold here with the eyedropper on, and then I can keep drawing in gold. And now I want to draw in green, so I can just eyedrop the green and keep drawing in green. So that's useful, but there's actually an even quicker way to do this. When we're in the draw mode and we hold down the Alt key, it pops over to the eyedropper immediately. So I'm just going to eyedrop brown, draw brown, eyedrop gold, draw gold, and you see my mouse is not moving at all. It doesn't need to move around the canvas. It just moves to pick up while I'm holding down the Alt key, and that's a really fast way to draw with multiple colors that I've got on the canvas. So that's the eyedropper tool. Let's talk a little bit about, one more thing I would like to talk about is there's another keyboard shortcut. When I hold down the Alt key and I click on a swatch, it then enters select mode and it selects all of the beads of that color on the canvas. So we know that we can use this color select tool to select all the beads of the same color, but we could also Alt click and it will do the same thing. Let's move on to talking about the bead library. The bead library is your place for storing all of the beads that you own, and it's also the place where Beadographer lists all the beads of a certain brand or product, different products that are available to you. So right now in this project we are using Miyuki Delica beads. So when we click this bead library, we'll see all of the Delica beads are listed in order, DB1, DB2, all the way up to DB several thousand. And there are two ways to present these beads. One is just, it's a long list of beads like this. And another way is they could be presented in color order. So let's take a look at that. If we click on this color match button, we can see that suddenly it changes and now they're all in this very different order, but they're all very similar color. So what's going on here? Well, when you click color match, whatever bead we've got selected, which is this kind of maroon bead, the app then looks in the bead library and it pulls out the beads that are closest in color to that selected bead. If we change the selected beads, then these beads will change too, because we've still got the color match option open. So let's have a go with that. Now cornflower is selected and we have all these bluish beads and pink ones and so on. So why would we want to do that? Well, sometimes we might want to know, well, what beads exist that are pretty similar in color to something I already have. For example, imagine I could have a bead, imagine I got this bead on the canvas DB2513 and I've run out of them, but I don't know if I've got some other beads in my stash that might work as a substitute. I could use this color match function to swap out, some beads for a different type of bead. I could also do the same thing if I am trying out different designs. I've got this nice, let's say I've got a nice zigzag design and I want to do the same bracelet again, but with different colors. And I want to give people different options, like a yellow and green option, as well as a blue and white option, but I don't want to have to remake the whole bracelet. Well, this is where we could swap out colors as well. Let's do that in a second, but I just wanted to talk about the color match function as kind of a really critically useful feature here. We can also see different beads categorized in different ways. We have right now only 2 options here, but when we create some collections, we will see more collections here, and we can see different categories that we can create. So that's going to happen in a minute. All right, so let's take a look at each of these results. We have this bead, which is DB6, and then that's the product number, and then we have some description about that bead, what it looks like, and then we have 3 buttons, which are 3 actions we could do with that bead. So the first action is we can add it to our current palette. So I'm going to add that to our current palette, and you see it's appeared right at the bottom. The second action we can do is we can swap a certain style for a particular bead. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to put the color match on again and click on this brown bead. And now right now this brown bead is just brown. It's not a particular color, but I want to swap it with a real Miyuki product. So I'm going to swap it for this one here, 2354, and click this swap button. Now watch these beads on the canvas when I click that swap button. Here we go. You see they actually changed, and this bead changed too. So what happened is I swapped out this bead in my palette for this bead from the library. So that's quite a powerful feature there. The third feature here is this bookmark feature, which adds your bead to a certain collection. And we're going to talk about the collections in a minute. I'll show you that. But that's what it does. So let's talk a little bit more about searching for a certain product in the library. Imagine that I know that I have this bead I want, or bead I own, called DB237. I can just type in the product number here and press enter, and here it is. It's this green bead. I can now add it into my project. Also, you could search by different colors. So I could search yellow, and then all the yellow beads will come up. I can also put in multiple terms, yellow and gold, and now yellow and gold. Both the beads that are both yellow and gold came up here. So that's a way of searching the library for either a particular product or a certain color. You can also search for a specific color using a hex code. And so let's just put in a hex code, ABC123, and then we'll find all of the beads that are closest to this particular hex code, which represents a specific color. Okay, so let's take a look at these beads again. We know that we can add a bead in, we can swap it in, or we can add it to a collection. But we can also do, something else we can also do is we can edit a bead. And so right now the Beadographer has this inbuilt list of beads that are these delicate beads, but some of them might not be completely accurate, or you might want to change them around a little bit. For example, you might want to change the descriptions or change what it looks like. So let's do that right now. Let's say we've got some of this DB22 gold in our collection, but we don't like the way this looks. It actually doesn't look very gold, and we found the real bead has a slightly different color and finish. So we're going to edit it, and the way we edit it is by clicking on this, either click on this bead here or click anywhere in this row except the end, and we'll get to this Edit Library Bead dialog box. This Edit Library Bead is very similar to this palette option, Edit Swatch, but the difference is that instead of editing a swatch in a particular product, we're now editing the library which will appear across all projects. So when we edit one of these, it will then change for all projects. It won't change anything inside a project in the palette, but it will change anytime you click on this library thing and this library chest. It will change what appears. So let's take a look at the options here. We've got the product number. I'm not going to change that because I think that I am going to edit DB22. I'm not going to change the product number, but I'm going to change. Maybe I'm going to change the description or the details. I'm going to say instead of gold, metallic gold opaque, I actually want to remember that this is like a particular gold bead that I really like. So I'm going to call it my favorite gold bead. Okay, I'm going to call it that description. And I'm also going to change the color. I'm going to say, well, this bead is actually a little bit kind of brighter. It's got a finish, and I'm going to add a tint as well. And then, I'm going to add the tint down here. And I'm going to say, okay, that's much closer. I'll just say, okay, that's actually much closer to the look that I want for this particular bead. And so I'm done almost, but I'm also going to add a stock. And this is just a diagram that is meant to represent how many beads you have of this particular product in your stash. So I'm going to say I've got, and these bars here can represent whatever you want them to represent, but I'll say that for me, green means I've got a lot of that bead, yellow means I've got quite a lot, orange means, enough for maybe a project, but not that much, and red means just a handful left. And then this last one is empty. So I'm going to say I've got quite a lot of this bead left, okay? And I'm going to save that. Now we can see that when this bead is listed in the library, we can see we've got the stock icon added, so we see how many we have, and the description's been overwritten with my favorite gold bead. So when I add that, when I add this into the library now, it's going to be reflecting the new color I gave it, and that will be saved across your projects. If you've edited a library bead and then you later decide you made a mistake and actually it wasn't DB22 that you meant to edit and you wish you had the original settings, it's not a problem. You can just click and then click this reset button, and then all of the original factory settings, as it were, the original color and description will be restored. So it's not irreversible. So another thing we can do is we can add a new library bead. So imagine that Miyuki comes up with a new Delica bead and Beadographer doesn't yet have it. I didn't yet update the app, but you really want to have this in your stash and in your program. Well, we just click new bead up here, and we're going to call this DB 12345, which is a made-up name, which is sort of a made-up product number, but we're just imagining for now. And we'll just give it some exciting color and finish, and let's say this is what it is, and we're going to say it's like we'll call it purple fun, and it's a transparent sparkle is the finish, and then we've got a lot of it because we just bought it, and we're done. So now we can't see it immediately because we're still listing in this order, but if we want to find it, we can either just type in the product number, or we can type in one of the keywords, and we'll find it that way. And we can again add it into our project. So that's how we add a library bead. We can also then delete that bead and just get rid of it if we decide that we don't have it anymore, or we made a mistake or something like that. We can also get rid of it. Let's take a look at the collections feature in Beadographer. Collections allow you to group beads together into palettes or other convenient groups. You add beads from the bead library into collections that you want. It's a useful way to categorize and organize beads that you have in your stash. There are two ways to see what collections you have. One is in the bead library, which I'll show you in a minute, and the other way is through the menu. Let's take a look at the menu system first. If you go to Palette and then Collections, you will see a list of collections. And right now I don't have any collections, so I'm going to create one. This white box lets us create a new collection. So I'm going to create a collection, let's just say favorites. Let's suppose I have a go-to palette of Delica beads that I always use again and again. And so these are my favorite beads in my bead stash. And then we get to choose a color for the collection. That just changes this bookmark icon, which you'll see in a second, which shows which collection a bead is in. So let's just pick a color, and I've got orange. So there's my collection, and I can see I've got 0 beads in it right now. And if I click on it, it just has a list of beads, but there's actually no beads there. So let's add a bead to this collection, or maybe add a few beads. So to add a bead to the collection, we want to go to the bead library. Let's open it up. And here we are. So let's just find some beads to add in. I'll use the color match feature just to pick some beads. And how about this one? We're going to add it to our collection that we just created. So we're going to do that by clicking on this bookmark icon here. And now we see there's this collection called favorites. And right now, if I click on it, it will then fill in this bookmark to the color that we chose for favorites, which is orange. Now we're going to click done. And now we can see that this DB658 bead is in that collection. And let's add another one. Let's just add, I don't know, how about this? 1110. Add it in by clicking that and up. And let's just add one more. We could search for a bead and add it in. DB237, add it to favorites. Done. Okay. So now we've got our favorite palette. Well, how do we see that? Let's go back, and we can see in collections, now it has 3 beads. We'll click on it, and here are our beads that we have. We could get them out of the collection by clicking that trash icon, or we could edit that bead. As we saw before, you can overwrite a library bead, and that's a handy way to do it from inside your collection. There's also this stock bar, which lets us see how many we have in stock. So why don't we say that we've got some in stock for all of these beads. And there we go. So now we can see these three beads are all in stock now. Let's just add another collection so we can see the whole process again. Let's call it, how about we could say, like, I don't know, greens. Let's suppose we keep all of our greens together, and that's important to us somehow. Maybe we do beading with lots of floral motifs, and we want to get all of our leaves together or something like that. All right, so now this has 0 beads, and we're going to add some to the greens. So let's just search for green, and we're going to add in some to the greens. And let's see, how about this one? Done. And let's see. How about this one? Okay, so now we've got 3 in our green collection. We can go back and we can see it's got 3 beads as well. Here they are. And let's just say we're going to make sure that these are in stock as well. So we're going to just indicate that we have some of these beads in stock. Okay, there we go. And now let's also take a look at how we can see those collections in our bead library. So one thing we can do is just click anywhere on these bookmarks and we'll get to this bookmark area. You can actually see, if we click on this edit button here, you can change and edit the collection if you want to. And we can also see our collections this way under show, and we'll have favorites and greens. So let's see the favorites, here they are. And let's see the greens, here they are. There's also one more option we have, which is to see all in stock. Let's take a look at that. And all in stock just shows us any bead that we've said is in stock, and it sorts it by most in stock down to least in stock. So that's what all in stock does. And you can see we've added most of these to a collection. I just want to show you that if you add something to, you can also add something to multiple collections. This 112, we could add it to both favorites and greens. It now has this orange bookmark. It's actually part of both collections, but it just takes the color of the first collection. So if we go to favorites, you can see it's here. And if you go to greens, you can see it's here as well. But the app just chooses one color only. All right, so what's a useful way we can use collections? Well, one thing we could do is we could clear out our palette and just add in all our beads from our collection. So why don't we do that? We're going to go to palette and delete unused swatches. Just gets rid of all our swatches. And let's just add in the beads from a collection. Let's just say we're going to add in our favorites. And we could just go down this list and go plus, 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 and there they are. There's our favorites right on the left there. But there's actually a faster way of doing what we just did. You can open a new project and just have these ready to go. Let's do that now. So we're going to click a new project. And we're going to, instead of this default palette here, we're going to use favorites. Okay, and let's launch. And there we go. This new project has our favorites ready to go. If we don't want a collection anymore or we don't use it, we could easily delete it. And we can do that in this collections area. If we just click this trash can, we can, oh, sorry, no, that's deleting a bead from the collection. I apologize. If the better way to do it is, we have to go, when we're listing collections, then we click edit and then delete. Let's just do that once more. Where we're in this collections view, we click edit and then delete. Let's delete our favorites. They're gone. And now we can't see favorites anymore. So that's a way to delete a collection. So that was a quick look at how you can organize your beads into collections. You can load them in at the beginning, and you can also view what you have in your collections up here. I hope that was handy. And now we're going to go on to the next part, which is using an image file. In this next part, we're going to take a look at how to use an image file using this image tool up here. So we are going to try two things. Firstly, we're going to use an image file for converting an image into beads. And the next thing we're going to do is to use an image file for tracing. So let's get started. We're going to click on this image tool, and it will launch depending on your system, a different way of selecting files. And then you can just click and choose any image, and it will appear on your canvas like that. You can do JPEG and PNG images. The canvas only allows one image at a time, so if I click this again and put another image in, this first image will disappear. When the image tool is highlighted, it allows us to move and transform the image. So you can just click and drag the image around to where you want it. You can also click on this little red dot, which will rotate the image. And finally, we have some options down here. This left slider will change the size of the image. You can make it big or small. And so we'll just have it big enough to cover the canvas, like that. And this right image will change the opacity of the image. So we can have it very, very see-through or not at all see-through, like that. Let's convert the image into beads. This button down here is our conversion button. And when we click on that, we then have some options here. We have the option for the number of colors we want to use in the conversion, whether we want to limit the palette to the styles we already have, and our conversion method. And the conversion method, we have an RGB or HSV conversion method, and it's just two different algorithms for converting the picture into beads. If you have bad results with the RGB algorithm, you can try out HSV and see if it works better. But normally the RGB one seems to give better results. So let's try out some different things. I'm going to just use the default options and just click convert and see what happens. All right, so here we have something that looks a bit confusing, but if I just get rid of the image for a second, we can see that this is what has happened. The image has now put this nice mushroom onto the canvas, and here are all the different beads that it's added. If we scroll down, you'll see that all of these beads down here are the beads that the app automatically added to the canvas when it did the image conversion. Let's just try again though, and we're going to use different options. I'm going to get just click on this convert image again, and I'm going to just limit to, let's say, 5 colors and see what happens. Okay, and now I'm going to take a look again, and this is the same image, but it's limited to 5 colors. We've got just one red, and then there's these different colors, so we've got a different effect. And let's do another one where we could, I'm going to just undo everything, and then we're going to do it all again, but this time we're going to limit the beads to the colors we already have on the canvas and see what that does. So there we go. We're going to click use only styles and palette and convert. And there we got a different result again. So you can play around with images and transforming them and converting them into beads in that way. Another thing we can do is we could also use this. So let's just get rid of the beads. We could also just use this image as a template to trace over. So right now I'm not going to convert it this time, but I'm going to just have it as fairly see-through, and then I'm going to draw on the canvas and just get this mushroom shape and see if I can recreate it in a different way. This is a useful way of just copying a shape that maybe you like and putting it on the canvas. So there we go. I'm going to use the paint tool to color that in, and I could use white and get some nice white things there, and then I'm going to maybe put some of these white specks all over the mushroom, and we can look at the image, and we'll get rid of the image entirely now, and there you go. I've got a mushroom, which I created by just tracing over an image. Now let's take a look at some other tools that we have in the app, and we're going to start with the beading mode, which is this icon up here, which looks meant to look like a thread going through a needle. So we click on the beading tool, and then we click where we want to start. It will then highlight one row at a time which will let us create our patterns. So when the time comes to create this bracelet, I want to know which row I'm on and thread those beads, pick up the right beads and put them on the thread. I can then use this beading tool, and I'll start with my first row. I've got that row done, then I go to my next row by pressing the enter button or return button on the keyboard, and then it will highlight one row at a time, which will help me create the project. I can also go backwards and forwards with the rows, move this beading row by clicking these arrows here. And this change direction button, what it does is it lets us change the direction in which we're beading. Let's say we might have a different type of stitch that works in a different orientation. That's what this change direction button does. So that's the beading mode. The next mode I'd like to talk about is the mirror tool. This is the mirror tool here. It's similar. You click on it and then you have to click on the canvas to enable it. So we're going to click on the canvas, and then this red line appears, which is a mirror line. Well, let's just get rid of our current design, and we're going to create something with a mirror. So actually, we could have a mirror in either direction. We could have it either vertically or horizontally. But let's just have it vertically for now. I'll put this mirror, that's the horizontal version. I'll put this mirror somewhere in the middle of the bracelet, like that. And now when I draw on one side, beads will appear on both sides of the mirror. So that's quite fun and useful to do if you want to create symmetrical designs like this. I don't know what I'm doing, but that's the mirror tool. If we click on the mirror again, it will change the orientation of the mirror. So now we have top and bottom like that. If I draw on one side, beads appear on both sides of the mirror, and you can also reflect in both directions. So for example, you can see that when I click one bead, actually 4 beads now appear, and I've got some sort of interesting design that I can create using mirrors. For different types of pattern, different mirrors are available. Triangle patterns and medallion patterns, also warped square and peyote stars, have their own special types of mirror that you can try and play around with. The next tool that I'd like to talk about is the ruler tool. And this is really fairly simple. It just lets you measure a distance on the canvas from one place to another. Currently it's in inches, but I'll show you in a minute when you enter the menu system, you can change your units of measurement from inches to centimeters. And then there's this row shift tool here, which is not really very relevant for loom patterns. So why don't we create a new project, and we'll create a peyote project this time. Here we go. We're going to have a peyote project. Now sometimes in peyote or other types of projects, you might have some patterns that have an irregular type number of row shifts. So right now the row shift just goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, but it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you might have several up or several down in a row. So you could use this tool to create custom row shifts. So I'm going to do that like this. I'm going to say this pattern has 1 down, 3 up all the way, for example. And maybe that's a type of pattern that I really like. And I can create that, and then I can go ahead and create whatever pattern I like using this custom row shift. The other thing that you could do with the row shift tool, which is quite useful, is create a canvas that has sort of a mixture of both brick stitch and straight beads. I'll just create one to show you what I'm talking about. So let's just create a new brick stitch project. I'm going to call this, this is useful for these, for the earrings. I'll show you like this. So the top of the pattern is going to be brick stitch, but the bottom is just going to be these straight dangly earrings. Well, these straight dangly lines, whatever we're going to call it. So here we go. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to make the bottom all straight like this, and the top has brick stitch. Now I can make a design where you've got the kind of brick stitch part of the design up here, and it's just a sort of template for now. And then the lower part can have whatever we like down here, and then that's useful for making some type of earrings. So that is the row shift tool. Let's move on to the bead soup tool. I'll just go back to my projects and we'll, I don't know, go back to this one. So the bead soup tool allows you to create a small collection of beads that could be mixed together and selected at random. Let's have a go and see what that looks like. Right now we can't click on bead soup because we haven't actually created a bead soup. But when we go to the menu system, we go to my palette, then we can create a new bead soup. So I'm going to create a soup that's made of aqua, white, and lemon beads. Create a bead soup. Now we have a new bead soup created. Now the bead soup tool is available. I'm going to click on it. And when I click on it, the active style is no longer one active style, but it's a mixture of styles. That's why this soup icon appears here. Now when I draw, we get a random selection of these 3 beads that I selected for soup. Similarly, if I add a rectangle, it will do the same. And if I paint, let's just, if I paint, hang on a minute, with the bead soup selected, the paint bucket will do the same. Let's select the paint. There we go. It will also paint in random beads from my bead soup. You can click exit from the bead soup at any time by just clicking on a swatch, and now that swatch is selected and the bead soup will no longer be in effect. The final tool that we can look at is the star tool, and the star tool is also not active unless we are in a particular mode, which is peyote star mode, peyote star pattern. So let's take a look, and we can add a peyote star pattern. When you are in a peyote star, we want to be able to switch views from the different parts of the star. This is we have here a front view of the star. We'll just add some beads to the front, but there's also the back of the star. When we click on the star tool, we have this panel up here, which enables us to swap between the different views. This is the front view, this is the back view. Let's add some beads to the back of the star. Let's add some beads like that. We'll see that the tips of this final bead on the tip of every point is actually shared between the front and the back view. So you see when I go back to the front view, these have now turned cyan. That's because these 2 beads are actually the same bead. And then these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are the 5 panels that are the warped squares. And a warped square is basically an area like between this area here is half of the warped square. It's hard to see, it's hard to understand unless you've actually kind of seen one of these in real life, but basically this area, this red area here is half of the warped square that you see on the front, and you make the peyote stars by making 5 warped squares and then stitching them together. So if we look at this warped square number 1, that you'll see that it corresponds roughly to this red part corresponds to this red part here. And then so you actually start by making, you start by beading in this little area here, kind of in this nook between these 2 points, and then you work out to the outside of the warp square. Then you stitch them all together. So that's kind of how a peyote star works. It's a little complicated. There's lots of tutorials online which can explain it far better than me. But that's the peyote star tool. Look at the menu system of Beadographer. This is the area that you get to when you click on the gears here, and you can get out of it by clicking Exit Menu. It has different sections, My Projects, New Edit, and so on. Let's look at the My Project section. This lists all the projects that you've created, and then when we create a new project, like this, it will then appear hopefully in My New Projects, and you can come back to it later. You can add tags to your project by clicking on it and then clicking the Edit button. We could add a tag like something like that, 2 tags, and then we see they've appeared there. And then if you if you click on one of the tags, you'll see all the projects with that tag then listed. So it's a good way of keeping your projects organized. You can sort your projects, and you can show just different types of patterns and libraries depending on what you have available. Let's take a look at the Edit Project section. This is where we can edit and add details to the currently open project. So if we click on Edit, we can add a description, credits, and then some instructions of how to bead it if you like. And then that will then get updated. And here is a place where you can also change the size of your project. And you can also change the pattern in some cases, and you can change the bead library. So let's take a look at that. Right now, let's just say that we've made this project, but we want to make it a little bit bigger. We can just add more rows and columns by doing that, and then clicking Update Project. Now we have another couple of rows and columns on it. And another thing we can do is we can trim a project. Let's suppose we've made this ornament here and but we don't need these extra rows or columns, or we could get rid of them really quickly. And that's under the Actions section. We click Trim Project, and then we've trimmed it down. One thing we could do if we want to make different versions of a project, we could try and duplicate it. So here, if we click Duplicate Project, and we're going to call it, I don't know, we'll say red and yellow version of the same project. Now, if we go back to the projects, we've got this one called red and yellow. Let's open it up, and we're going to change the colors to red and yellow. And this is just a different version of the same project that we've created. And then we see we've got very quickly 2 different versions of the same project, and we can come back and edit them later. What else could we do? There's an extra option that comes up only in peyote star mode. So let's just quickly take a look at that. In peyote star mode, peyote star pattern, we can design the front of the star here, and we might have a very nice looking front of the star. We'll say 1, 2, 3, like that. And let's suppose we're happy with this pattern. But if we go to the back of the star, you see the back of the star is still empty. So this is an extra option we have in the Edit menu. Under Actions, we say have this copy front to back. And then now when we click that, the back is now a mirror image of the front. So that could be useful if we quickly want to copy our design from the front to the back of the star. Let's take a look at the palette area. This list of swatches is just the same as this list here. So really a lot of the same things can be done in this area too. So just like we can shift click on a swatch to edit it or open the palette menu, the similar thing can happen here. If we click on this edit icon, we'll be able to edit a swatch. we can delete a swatch by clicking on this trash button, and we could also order our swatches by clicking on the description here. It will, when any of these, will order it in, we'll sort them in, this will be in alphabetical order, and this will be in the order of color being from red to through to purple. And if we have symbols, we can sort by symbol as well. So something we can do in our project is we can, in our palette menu, is that we can delete the unused swatches. That's to delete the swatches that we're not using in the project. Let's do that right now. It cannot be undone. And there we see we're down to the swatches we actually have in the project. Let's take another look at some of these buttons. If we select swatches here, then these three buttons become available. First one is create bead soup. We saw that earlier on. We click to add these swatches to a new bead soup, and then we'll now try out the bead soup, and it's choosing either the white or the blue. And what else could we do? We can auto assign symbols. So the symbols are currently empty. One way of adding a symbol is just to put a symbol in here and click save. But if we don't want to do that, we can auto assign symbols, and then it will just auto assign A, B, C, D, E, and so on. And the final thing we can do is this match styles to library button that will basically do the same thing as if we opened up the library, selected color match, and then we swapped in the very first bead from this list. If we did that to every single bead in our palette, it would be the same thing as clicking this match styles to library button. So that's the current palette area, but we could also add and manipulate our collections here. So if we wanted to add a new collection, we could do that here. And we could also view our collections as well by clicking on them. And we could also edit the collection, delete them, and we could also remove beads from our collection or edit these beads as well. Let's move on to the settings part of the menu. This is where we can change some of the settings we have. The first one is theme, which is just what the general beading area looks like. If we change from auto to light, we'll see that now it has a white background. And if we change it to dark, we'll see now it has a dark background. That could be just useful depending on your project. We can change between inches and centimeters. That's for the ruler tool. So we change to centimeters, and before it was in inches, and then we use the ruler and it's in inches. This pointer coordinates here is not actually available in Peyote Star anyway. So let's just take a look and open another project. If we show the pointer coordinates, you'll see down here it's showing us where in the project we are. When we hover over a bead, it'll tell us the coordinates in row and column of that bead. But if we get rid of that, it will now be off. This bead symbols, inactive beads, render as simple blocks. That's the same as these three buttons here that we've already covered in the hand submenu, showing the symbols, showing the inactive beads, and showing the rendering. So it's just an example. We're going to render as simple blocks, and now it looks like this. Then we don't render as simple blocks, and it looks like this, back to how it was. Enabling mouse scroll, that allows you to use your middle wheel on your mouse or your trackpad to scroll the scroll around as a quick way of moving around the canvas. And in the guides, turning on the guides was similar to this, clicking on this button here, but we can also set the distance of the guides. So if we want them, let's say 8 by 8 instead of 5 by 5, now there will be bigger space between those lines. We could also change the guide color, and if we want a different color, we could do that. Maybe it will stand out better. Upload allows you to upload a bead project to a bead file to the app. How do we get a bead file in the first place? Well, the way to do it is you click on one of these and you click this download button. Then that will download a bead file. Bead files can only be opened by a beadographer. They're not really much use for anything except for transferring between, you could use it to send the bead file to your friend or open somebody else's project. That's a useful way of doing it. So if somebody else has a project you want to try out, you can ask them to send you the bead file and then you click upload and you can upload it from your computer. The final area is maybe one of the most complicated areas in Beadographer, and that's exporting the project. If you just simply click Create PDF, it's actually already fairly simple. You just click that green button. You don't really need to change anything. It should create a PDF for you automatically with the title, description, bead list, instructions. Currently, we didn't put in any instructions, a diagram, and a word chart. That all happens just without us doing anything, but we can change a lot of the settings. So the first thing I think we should talk about is this editor here, this PDF text editor. Actually, this is just simply a text editor. So if I type in some text here, and then I click Create PDF, it really just creates a PDF of whatever we have in that text editor. So it just created a PDF of, hello, this is some text. Not very useful. But what we do is if we want different elements of our project in there, we can basically mix and match whatever we want. So imagine we just want the word chart and nothing else. We can click word chart and it adds this little shortcode in. And this shortcode here with the square brackets, that's just telling the app that you want a word chart. So we click Create PDF, and now the word chart comes all by itself in a PDF. But imagine we just want to add another title. We'll say My Project version 1.0. Okay. I'm going to click on this button to make it a title. And now I'm going to create a PDF. And now it has that title as well. And then I could just type in extra information. Here is the word chart. Hope you enjoy. And then create a PDF. And then that text just came in there. Okay, so that's basically how it works. Each of these shortcodes will insert different options. So let's just say we want the title, an image, we want the bead list, and the word chart. That's what we want in our PDF. And that's normally, let's say that's what I normally do. And then, but I always want the same 4 things every time I create a PDF. Well, we can actually save that as a template now. We're going to save that as a template and call it simple export. Okay, so now we have this save templates as simple export, and I could get rid of this, and we could have anything else here. It doesn't really matter. And then, but if I click on this simple export, it'll just revert to the template I just had. So let's see what this looks like. Title, image, bead list, word chart. Here we go. Title, image, bead list, word chart. So that's a simple way to get a different type of export. You can have really whatever you want in whatever order by using these shortcodes and then adding in your custom titles and custom text. Let's take a look at some other options. On this page, we have other options for creating the PDF, and you have some extra information about each one here. The first one, use custom word chart. So sometimes in the word chart, let's just give them all symbols. So we've got that, and then we're going to reset the word chart. Okay, this is our word chart. Sometimes the word chart doesn't really work how we want it. Let's suppose we want to actually start on row 10 to 19, and then we want to go back and do, I don't know, 1 to 9. Let's suppose that's how we want to do it. So we can say, we're going to actually make our custom word chart. We'll say part 1, do that, and part 2, do that. This is our custom word chart right now. Okay. Now, if we click word chart here, we need to let the app know that we want to use a custom word chart, not the one that it auto generates. So that's why we would use custom word chart here. Let's see, if we create PDF, now this custom word chart part 1, part 2 is coming up. And really you can put anything in here, it doesn't really matter. And if you decide you don't like it, you want to just go back to the word chart that the app creates, you just click reset word chart and it will auto create a word chart for you. So that's the custom word chart. The split project into panels, that is for Loom. I think Loom and a few of the other patterns only. Basically, some really huge projects you might want to create in strips, in panels, rather than all together. So let's see what that looks like. We've got this project right now that is about, let's see, how big is it? It is, all right, 19 by 22. Let's just make it a bit bigger. Let's make it 80 by 80. And it's a quite fairly big project. We maybe wouldn't want to bead 80 beads by 80 beads. Would be really big for us. So yeah, let's just make a new project here. Okay, it doesn't really matter. There we go. And we're going to if we just export the PDF as it is, it's going to have these very large diagrams of many rows. But what if we just wanted to create things in panels? Instead, we would click this split project into panels, and we want to have the panels be 25 beads wide or no more than 25 beads wide. Now, if we click create PDF, we'll see that it should split it into panels. Let's see how that works. You see the panel 1 is actually, so it's split it into panels of 20. There you go, you can see panel 1 is 20 beads, panel 3, panel 4, and then the word chart, it will create separate word charts for each panel as well. So that could be useful if you're doing large tapestries or very large projects. The starting bead and beading direction, it just lets you choose the direction and the place where you start your beading. It will be set as top left and going vertically, but you might be beading horizontally if it's a different stitch, or you might want to start in a different direction, and this is where you can do that. Alternate row direction means you can first go one way and then the other way, one way and the other way. If you bead your project first going in one direction and then going in the other direction and changing direction on each row, then you'll want to check this alternate row direction. This small diagram just changes the size of the diagram for the on the image, on the diagram chart. So let's just see what it looks like. If we just look at normal diagram, let's just say normal diagram now, and we'll see what that looks like. This is what the normal diagram looks like. But if we make small diagram, then it should be a little different. You see, it's now actually very small. And sometimes people would like to work with smaller diagrams. That way you could fit more beads onto the page. The page size you could choose between letter and A4, depending on where you are in the world, what sort of paper your printer will use. And the footer text, you can just add a footer in, and that will just add a piece of text on every page like that. And then the header image is an image that you can add to the top of the first page. Maybe you have a type of logo that you want to add, your beading store or whatever. If you're making this professionally and you want other people to use it and you want them to know who you are, you could add an image in, and it only gets added to the first page. Finally, you could add in some other custom images. So let's add in that mushroom again, and then we've currently just got title and diagram, but let's just say title, image, description, detail, details, bead list. There we go, word chart. We've got all of our various things we need, but we're also going to put in this this picture somewhere. Maybe that's important to us. Currently it's of a mushroom, which doesn't make much sense, but if you might have some extra pictures, like you might have a picture of the finished beading project and you might want to put that in. That will then be able to put in the PDF. So right now it's getting just put in there, and you can continue to see the rest of the PDF. So that's a way of inserting an image. So there's only a limited amount of flexibility with this PDF text editor. It has some things. If you want to be able to play with it more, then you really are going to need a piece of software like Microsoft Word or Adobe Acrobat or something to really finesse what it looks like. But this will be able to give you all the basics for your pattern. I think that is most of the options. The final part is that we have a help section here, which will link to our YouTube tutorials like this, and then the Facebook group, and it'll allow you to get in touch with us with the contact form as well. So that takes us to the end of the tutorial. I know it's been very long, and I hope that you find this useful. There are lots of changes in Beadographer 3 that I'm really excited about, and I can't wait to see what everybody creates with the software. Thank you so much for watching.